So welcome to creating a learning space for students to show up as their full selves. Entry task, as you've seen, is in the chat. Share a place or space where you feel comfortable showing up as your full self, and where does it feel impossible to show up as your full self. And we're a small group, so thanks for dropping that in chat. If you'd rather go off of mute to share, you're welcome to do that as well. And I think I'll start, and then I think the presenters, we can go through and do some sharing. So I'm Amber McCulloch. I'm at Puget Sound ESD. And for me, I shared this example before. I think about running, like showing up to a track meet or a race. I feel very comfortable. Showing up at a pool, I do not feel that. It feels impossible to show up as my full self. I'm not sure how to act. I'm not sure what to do. I don't know what the rules are of the facility. And it feels really awkward.
Are we taking turns?
Yes, let's go for it.
Oh, okay. Hi, my name is Janet. I'm a resource English teacher at Hawkinson High School. And I would think that being completely myself is just at home. I mean, when I walk in the house, it's just a relief. Obviously, everyone's most comfortable at home, I think. I think that when I go to meetings, because I am a special education teacher, that teachers look to me like I'm supposed to have all the answers on how to handle problems in their classroom, and I don't. And so sometimes that just makes me a little uncomfortable. I don't really feel like I'm myself. Maybe that seems bad, but that's the truth. I'm laying it out there. I don't have all the answers. I try. I always say, if I don't have the answer, I will find you the answer, but right there, I may not have it. Anyway, that makes me a little uncomfortable. Whoever wants to go next.
I can go next. I'm Becca Horowitz. I use she, her pronouns, and I am an English language arts manager at Puget Sound ESD. I work with Amber and Remy, and I think about a place as my childhood home. I just think about extreme comfort there, and a space where I feel like I can't show my full self is a formal setting, like a bank or a doctor's office or something that just feels institutional.
Good afternoon, I'm Remy Poon, also from Puget Sound ESD. I'm the pre-K-5 math system consultant. The space that I share with when I am with my grandkids, that I can feel free and enjoy the time that I can be with them, just having fun.
Hey everyone, I'm Joel LeBel, he, him pronouns, and I'm at Capital Region EST 113. And I'm going to defer my answer because we have lots of new folks that joined since we got started with this. So I just want to encourage them to check out the slide and our prompt, and hope we can hear from some of our participants.
I'm Jane, and boy, what you guys are all saying resonates with me. It always feels like I'm the only one who feels really uncomfortable. And I say staff meetings, but it's public places too. I'm a real introvert. And so I'm glad to still be teaching at home. I feel like I bring a more relaxed me from home than when I'm at work. I feel like it's a struggle to make the workspace seem really home, and that makes it tough.
I know for those who weren't able to share next, that our next opportunity will afford you the chance to do that. And recognizing we have pretty short time frame, all things considered, let's move into our next activity.
Right, thank you, Amber. So we will engage together in a heard, seen, respected protocol. This is from the Liberating Structures menu, and it's a resource we'll share with you before the end of the session. So this is a structure we can use with our students or with any community where we want to create an environment where people can show up as our full selves. So we'll take a moment of think time before we head into pairs. Depending on our numbers, we might have one trio. But we'll be telling a story about a time that we each were not heard, seen, or respected. And that does not have to be a story about an experience in school or at work. It could be from any part of our lives. So we'll take a moment of think time, and then we'll go into a breakout group for 4 minutes where we'll just listen to each other's stories. No need to respond, no need to process together.
All right, I'll go ahead and open up the breakout rounds. And some of the groups are a little bit bigger because I just did the 3 rounds. And for those who are participating asynchronously, just know that this would be an opportunity for you to pause and reflect on those questions for yourself. And then as we come back, you can engage in the at least part of the protocol with listening and hearing from others. And welcome back. Love those moments before you're forced out or when you volunteer back to the main session. Welcome, welcome.
Here we go. Oh, thank you. That was so nice to connect in the small groups. So now as a whole group, we'll have a chance to hear from a few of us sharing in response to any of these questions. Either what did it feel like to tell my story? What did it feel like to listen? And what patterns did we notice in the stories? Feel free to share by coming off of mute or adding a note in the chat.
I'll share what I just shared with you, that hearing stories of other women sharing and then realizing that I've had really similar experiences even just today, and that I discounted them and I just kind of give people the pass. And then to hear you share, I'm like, oh my gosh, that was like a total microaggression, maybe more than a microaggression, and that's not okay. And I think I just want to make people feel comfortable, even putting myself out, or even like people that I care about, just to make it okay for strangers. So that, anyway, that was very interesting for me. I really appreciate that, hearing that.
Thank you for sharing that. Any other reflections about what it felt like to participate or what we noticed in the stories?
Well, when I shared, it kind of brought it all back up to me again. Now I'm all upset again about what happened yesterday. But I think a similarity in the story is that we all had different viewpoints and different feelings that weren't acknowledged by other parties. So.
Thank you for sharing that. One thing that I noticed as a listener this time was it felt it was difficult for me not to chime in or affirm or ask any follow-up questions. It feels different just to listen.
I think I broke that rule. I said something. I guess I didn't do that part. Sorry.
Just a guideline. Well, thank you, and feel free to add reflections in the chat. This is a process that we can use with our colleagues, with our learners. It draws out connections and empathy across a community. It also asks us to reflect on the ways that we make others feel heard or seen or respected, and the ways that we might unintentionally make people feel that they are not. So this is one process that you might carry with you to create those learning environments where everyone can show up as their full self.
And we have 3 essential questions for us to discuss. And also, we also want to invite you to share resources and ideas on the Padlet or answer the question in there. And I have the questions in the chat also. So I'd like to check with my team and see whether we are going to have breakout or everyone just share.
We have about 10 minutes remaining of time. So I think if we stayed whole group,
okay,
and do some sharing out, that would be amazing.
Yes. And the Padlet link is in the chat too. So you can go there. We'd like to invite you to either use audio or video or reading response to one of the essential questions by clicking the plus button on Padlet. And if you have any resources or stories, and then you can share on the Padlet too. The Padlet will remain open for use for those who are participating asynchronously in the future. And if in the future, you can also go back to the Padlet and read what other people share. So I'm gonna open it up and share your ideas. So anything that related to the questions, for example, for what reasons should we pay attention to students' full self at all? Feel free to unmute to share or share in the Padlet.
Thinking of that second question, the why we would pay attention to students' full selves, and the idea of what is the result if we don't do that, and what happens if day after day students are showing up, they're not living their full humanity and feeling like they have to be an edited version of themselves to fit into whatever sort of classroom expectations or norms that are created, sometimes by us as educator, sometimes by other fellow learners, but just the ramifications that can have over time. And I'm also thinking about different ways that biases can play out. And if we don't take the time to really get to know our students and even think about ourselves, and to Becca's point with the last protocol we did, the ways that we might be making students feel like they're not heard, seen, or respected. And so, so many whys within that for taking time to really pay attention to students' full selves.
I'm kind of interested in hearing people's ideas on how we are giving the learners themselves opportunity. Because I know I have several students in my class where I know that they aren't their full selves in my classroom, and they sit there quietly and with their hood over, they have their hood on, they have a mask on, and I try to engage them in conversation and talk to them and ask them questions. And I realize that our school's only been back 4 days a week since starting last week, but I'm still finding it usually pretty good about making connections with my students, but I'm really finding it so it's a little challenging right now with some of my new freshmen. So I don't know if anyone, if just, being persistent, with relationship building is going to pay off and help them feel comfortable in my classroom. Because as a special education teacher, I do have my students for 4 years. So most students for 4 years. The idea would be to increase their skills so they can go into gen ed class. But for the most part, I have my students in there for 4 years. And usually by the senior year, they're comfortable with me. But I'm just really finding freshmen challenging to be a challenge this year. So.
I think our featured speaker in the main session answered what reasons we should pay attention to our full selves, our students' full selves at all really well, by reminding us that our students love their teachers, like in the legitimate sense of that, and they really look to them to bring love into teaching. And so one way is to love yourself and come with your full self, because the kids are going to do it anyway. And if you're not bringing it, then they're going to love this other version of yourself. And so I think Garrett inspired that, where just that reminder is something that I think will keep popping up for me as a reminder for why we should empathize with them at that level of them coming comfortably like that.
Do you feel that is across all grade levels though? Do you feel that, I understand the little ones, elementary and everything, of course, they love their teachers. I remember being little and loving my teacher. But as older students in high school, I think it's a little bit different. I think it's a little bit harder to get through to them and for them to feel comfortable and to come out of their shell.
I agree. I would not try to erase the difficulty of that.
No, I know you're not minimizing that, but I was just asking your opinion whether you thought that it would be different, because I do teach high school. So
I taught 16 to 20-year-olds a lot when I taught at a community care college level, and I thought the teens that I taught, that opportunity was there. But you're right that it isn't necessarily something that's taken or even offered to every student, but it was there for some. And so I think there's that equity and that drive to try to make that experience accessible to all types of learners and students, rather than just the ones that maybe are suited for it or suited.
Right.
I'm thinking about one thing you said, Joel, a moment ago about modeling that, bringing our own full selves. And I also taught high school, and as I got more comfortable as a teacher, just started showing them my weird side, and that made it a lot more fun and invited that. And sometimes also, I don't know, just sought out little ways to try to make it feel like we already had a really close relationship, you know what I mean? And that was one way to kind of get there for me with my students.
Yeah, I love that because I just will randomly say something to my kids and they'll just be like looking at me like, what? I'll just talk about something random, you know, and it's just so fun because I mean, that's how you get to, you know, become, you know, get to know each other. And I appreciate you saying that because that does remind me of myself because I do like to have fun. And I think I try to show them that I'm not just your teacher, I'm a person, you know, and I share experiences about when I was their age and what I went through and how I hated this and hated that. But, you know, in life, it's just, there's things you got to do, you know, I don't know. So I agree with you. Thank you for sharing that.
This would probably be an excellent time, maybe Joel, to share. We have a resource guide. This is not to say it's all encompassing, but some ideas. And then Jane, I also saw you go off mute, I think. Maybe
Yeah.
you wanted to share, but maybe not, but I wanted to
I
give you
was
a
going to
chance.
say, I just, I did this workshop just this past weekend, and I reconnected with a person that I taught with quite a while ago, but she shared that she goes to one event for each of her kids. So whether it's music or sports or whatever, she said it really is worth the effort. And I know I started that last year, but I could see the importance of it. She said it really built those relationships, not only with the kids, but with the parents. And I kind of thought, you know, when I go back next year, that's definitely what I want to take and start, because the kids were asking me to go to some of their games, but then you have to take and make it to everybody's. So,
Yeah, just to wrap us up here and before we send you off to your ESD connections, you can see on the screen here a slide that has some links to the resource guide. They're set up to be easy. If you're asynchronous right now and you just press pause, you can write them down or people can click them. I also shared them in the chat. And we put this resource guide together for a couple of reasons. One, to share all these resources, but also to give you a template to make your own resource guides of this sort, or to help add to the Padlet so we can add ideal resources in the future for creating learning spaces for students to show up as their full selves. So if you want me to switch, I can do 30 seconds of just showing what the thing looks like. And this is the resource guide. So anytime you click the front page button here, it'll bring you up to the front page, and it has a how-to. And basically it works both like a slide deck and like a clickable resource. So you can press down and just go through it all or over, or you could click around to each category, and each one of these pills with this description is a link to either a download or a link to one of these resources. So for example, if you were looking in policies, there are the model local education agency policies for transgender and non-binary students, or the heard, seen, respected protocol that we did is in the practices and processes. So I look forward to people checking this out. And I've also shared a make a copy link that if you need to just use it as a template, feel free to utilize what we made. Thanks. And I will share the link to the main session agenda website so people can navigate to their ESD Zoom rooms.
So thank you all for joining the session. If you are in Puget Sound ESD, you don't have to go anywhere. You can stay here. For those who have other home ESDs, I wish I could keep you, but please do use the link to navigate back to your ESD regional time. And thank you all for joining. It was really, really great to hear from you all.
Thank you.